I never want to be a cliche in my life. You know, the whole, it's funny, there's a term kicking around in talk radio, Obama derangement syndrome. Oh, it's kicking around society in general. You don't like Obama, and so you just spend all your time just screaming about how he's horrible and a Muslim and a socialist and not born here and trying to ruin the country and blah, 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 blah. A lot of which I agree with to some extent, but we don't want to be that show because there are plenty of them and they're not very entertaining. But it does strike me, between the spending unspeakable amounts of time, money, and political capital and jamming the healthcare thing through, when they really couldn't get a round of applause for it in America, while the jobs thing, the economy thing was everybody's number one concern. That struck me as borderline psychotic from the beginning. Never mind whether I think it's a good idea or not. I mean, if George Bush had tried to ram through, well, I didn't particularly like George Bush. If Ronald Reagan, how about Bush one, or not Bush one, George W. Bush first term, I liked him at that time. If he'd been trying to ram through some sort of incredibly unpopular rent Florida to the Chinese idea, I would have thought, nobody wants this, George. What are you doing? Who is this for? What are you thinking? It was just inexplicable politically. So from that moment on, I thought, boy, these people are odd. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but they're sure as hell odd.
I don't know what's going to come out of it.
Socialism?
You know, and then the whole politics thing. Maybe the worst thing that ever happened to America is that in 1770, I'm not sure of the year, 5, when a bunch of Boston businessmen dressed as Indians went on some tea ships and poured the tea into the harbor, that got named the Boston Tea Party, as opposed to the Boston Tea Revolt. If it had been called the Boston Tea Revolt, then all the political pundits in America right now wouldn't be confused the way they are into discussing the Tea Party as if it's a party like Republican Party and Democratic Party. Oh. It's not.
Boy, simpletons. You're right, though.
And that's the way that. So everybody talks about these Tea Party candidates as if it's a political party and whether or not they're going to win or what the Tea Party and all that stuff. It's a whole bunch of unhappy voters, sick of Republicans and Democrats.
Right.
And we don't all agree on everything, but it's just. So the political class just can't grasp it. They just can't grasp that there's a giant chunk of America that just would be willing to throw anybody out. Republican, Democrat, anybody. Right. Just to start over. What could it hurt? What could it possibly hurt?
Yeah.
And nobody seems to understand that for some reason.
Right.
And
I mean, even those of us who believe, who are the main, what do you call it, a burr in our saddle, the main thing sticking in our craw is the government's too big and socialistic, et cetera, et cetera. We do share a certain kinship with, lefties who just think the government is too corrupt and bought by special interests and lobbyists. I mean, that energy is kind of joining together, at least at the edges. So, yeah, it's a huge movement.
So a couple of Wednesdays from today, the day after the election, if the Republicans take back the House and the Senate, there's going to be all kinds of conversation on talk radio and cable news about the Republicans now have won something and something major has changed. And that's not the way Tea Party people are going to react, I don't think.
Right.
It's like, whatever. Okay, so how are you going to screw me?
Right.
They just don't understand it.
How quickly are you going to betray everything you promised?
It's always like a ball game to these people. I'm either winning or I'm losing. I just lost. Well, next time I'm going to win.
Right.
And it's so little about actual governance.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
Are you a lefty? Thank you for listening, first of all. Glad to have you here. Here's how it is. God dang it. Tom Friedman, who's made me so mad lately. Matt Taibbi. Smart guy, smarter than hell, smarter than everybody.
He seems very happy with his ability to use the F word in his columns because he writes for Rolling Stone.
And he's a bit smug, for my taste.
A little too much of the F-bombs just because you can.
Yes. So anyway, really smart guys asking an incredibly stupid question. Where was all this anger when George Bush was president? Well, a couple answers, and they're very brief and simple. So simple, I hope Matt Taibbi and Tom Friedman can pay attention. The answer is the anger was building. And we all felt betrayed by W and the Republican Congress, and we hate them. Here's what I want you to picture. Look, in however many years I've lived in California, I've become a Niners fan. It's as if the Republican Party is the 49ers if the 49ers were quarterbacked by Michael Vick, with Bill Romanowski leading the defense, Adolf Hitler as a wideout. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, you're coming up with people nobody likes. I see
the most loathsome collections of sons of bitches you can imagine. I mean, at some point...
O.J. Simpson at running back.
O.J. Simpson running the rock. Who else? Brett Favre showing his penis coming off the bench.
Playing pantless. Everybody likes it so much. Here it is.
Playing pantless. Squeezing your wife's hoot if she's unlucky enough to be in the front row.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, my God. It's a gallery of ghouls. Anyway, it's as if our beloved team had suddenly become populated almost entirely with the most despicable collection of whores and liars we've ever seen in our lives. And finally, we've all said, I don't care what uniform you're in. You're all a bunch of scum. There's your explanation, Matt. Tom, it's been building. We're all disgusted.
I guess.
And anybody who's still buying the up with the R's, down with the D's, you're an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess my point was, reading that article in Time magazine, a failed Obama administration for 4 years is not good for anybody. That's not something to cheer about. It doesn't help my life any. I'm only going to be on the planet for like 80 years.
Yeah.
60 of them as an adult taxpayer. Every 4-year chunk is pretty important to me. Whose banner is hanging behind the person doesn't really matter to me.
You know, if I may walk arm in arm with Rush Limbaugh for a moment. The only thing that happens that makes me happy about a failed Obama administration if it is America repudiating the idea of monstrous government European-style socialism. Then I'm happy. It's like a threat averted. You know, it's like wasting 10 minutes running away from a guy who's trying to shoot you. That's really not a wasted 10 minutes. It's not the way you planned on spending it. It's not the most productive 10 minutes, but it's good. It's a disaster averted. But yeah, the idea that I'll occasionally catch myself saying, yeah, the Republicans could win a bunch of seats. Then I say to myself, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, whoop-de-doo. A big freaking deal. What indication would anybody have that people are going to actually get together and seriously discuss Social Security now, and the fact that we're going to have to cut, we're going to have to change
raise
the age,
retirement age,
we're going to have to cut back into all these different things. Do you think that's going to happen? You think people are going to sit down and say, look, there's problems that actually have to be dealt with here. We have to figure this out.
You know what would make my heart glad?
We need to redistrict, because the way the districts are set up now is there aren't competitive seats. That's
By the way, we got to start banging the drum for those props, just so people who tune in occasionally will get the word. You know what would make my heart really, really glad is if the Republicans win a bunch of seats in the House and the Senate, and the Tea Party movement gets bigger, and the Tea Party gatherings get bigger as everybody screams at the Republicans, you do the right thing or we will... What can I say? Because I can't... We will ruin you. We are watching you more than ever. We will ruin you, you whores.
People are going to be on a short leash.
I hope so. Boy, would that make me happy.
Short leash, little tiny, getting back to Michael Vick, little tiny short leash.
John Boner, you lying, overly tanned, golfing son of a bitch. We are watching you. We got a microscope on you. You do the right thing or we will ruin you.
He's soon to be Speaker of the House.
Oh.
Anyway, stay with us. You're listening to, you can call us anytime, by the way, 1-866-331-TALK. You're listening to the Armstrong and Getty Show.